and welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, a podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to talk about Wonderwell. This one is going to upset me, I feel like, in order to talk about, but not for the reasons that any of you probably expect. Wonderwell snuck up on me, if I am completely honest. I think that they released it digitally at the end of June, and I just noticed it like a couple of days ago. So they did like a sneak release, like an under the radar, considering basically what this film is, at least to me. I don't know. You guys are going to have to let me know if you noticed it being released, or if the June release was just like Europe and then the United States release was recently, because I'm not entirely sure. So Wonderwell, for those of you who don't know, is a sort of fantasy film. It also is the last film, to my knowledge, the last film that Carrie Fisher filmed prior to her death. Now, this obviously would have been back in 2016. The movie was filmed in 2016. They wrapped around then. And wrapping for Wonderwell happened, I believe, a month and a half before Carrie Fisher passed away. So this was like literally on the cusp of when we lost her. And Carrie Fisher is someone that I adore. Like, obviously, she's Princess Leia. I've done another episode of hers previously with my favorite film of hers, which was Drop Dead Fred. And so I was kind of expecting this to sort of be along those lines, like not story-wise with Drop Dead Fred, but I knew that Carrie Fisher wasn't necessarily the main character. The little girl of Violet is meant to be the main character. Now, Kiera Millward, who plays the character of Violet, I believe was only like 12 in Wonderwell when the filming was done. Her character is meant to be 15, which, if you watch this film, is not believable in any way, shape, or form. Like, her older sister, there's like a teenage sister of hers that's trying to get into modeling, that strikes me more as like a 15, 16, 17-year-old. And Kiera Millward just doesn't. Like, she looks like a much younger girl that they're trying to say is older, which I feel like in Hollywood is typically the exact opposite, right? Like, I feel like they're normally always casting like 25-year-olds to play teenagers, high school students, like Twilight. But in this one, it's exactly the opposite. It's like a much younger, well, couple years younger girl trying to play someone who's older, and it's not particularly plausible. Now, the film itself is meant to just be the story of Violet, who believes herself to be a witch, which right out of the gate, because she pretty much says, like, I have a secret. Sometimes I think I'm a witch. Right out of the gate, like right within the first, I want to say 30 or so minutes of the film. And it just, for me, it immediately took me out of the movie, because you're watching on screen this little girl tell you that she has a secret, that she sometimes thinks she's a witch, but right out in the open, in front of everyone, like in front of her parents, out in public, anywhere she goes, basically, she's doing this thing. And I don't know if she's meant to be casting a spell. It doesn't really show it that way, but she's doing this thing where she walks up to a particular kind of flower, which is all CGI, obviously. And she just like holds out her wrist, and the flower will unplant itself-ish and wrap around her wrist so that she has kind of like this little flower bracelet. So, one, darling, that's not a secret last time I checked. And two, you don't think you're a witch, like, you know you are. Like, that's people, regular people can't do that, you know? Like, I'm very confused. The story itself is pretty disjointed, but it is about Violet, who basically thinks that she has these powers. There is, from my take, an evil witch played by Rita Ora, who plays the character Yana and then the good witch, Hazel, played by Carrie Fisher. And so when Violet like falls into the Wonderwell, she goes to the land where Carrie Fisher is the witch. And thus it's like this whole coming of age, learning about her powers, that sort of thing. Here's the thing that makes me incredibly sad about Wonderwell. It's so bad. Like, it's so terrible. And I don't even know how to explain how terrible it is. Like, there are a couple of fairly-ish well-known American actors, Carrie Fisher obviously being the biggest one. Megan Dodds is also in it, and she was in the movie Ever After, if anyone has seen that. You know, she was the sister that was like, there was a bee. She's that sister. And then Lloyd Owen is also in this, and of course Rita Ora. Everyone else that I know of are all, I believe, Italian actors. And I think that they are meant to be in Italy in this movie. I couldn't quite work out exactly. I'm fairly certain that they were meant to be in Italy. It doesn't really explain why. The older sister is trying to join this like modeling company, which of course is headed by Rita Ora's evil witch sort of character. But the acting is so bad. Like, it just, nothing about the story in particular is that interesting. And then the execution of it is so terrible. Like, there doesn't seem to be any chemistry whatsoever between any of the characters on the screen. Like, the best sort of chemistry that happens is between the little girl Violet and then this other little boy whose name I honestly cannot even remember at all. That's how much it just doesn't matter. It's like this little Italian boy and her kind of get along, sort of seem to be friends because, in my opinion, they're both kind of the outcast of their family. But like, it just sort of seems like each character in this film is acting entirely alone. Like, it sort of reminds me, and even in animation, it's done much better than this, but it sort of reminds me of kind of how they do like animated films, right? Where the actors typically, sometimes it's different, but typically they are not together, right? An actor will come in, they will act out their lines, and then all of that is sort of added together to make an animated film. They're not, you know, acting off of each other the way that they typically would be in a regular like live action film. This sort of felt like they had done it animation style. Like, everyone is just on a green set completely alone, and they just like digitally added everyone else in after the fact. Like, even the characters that are on screen together and interacting with each other, it's just so dead. Like, there's no emotion, there's no feeling behind anything that they're saying. That it's just like they're reading the script, right? Like a table read. But this is the final product. It was just so bad. And it was a struggle to like sit through because it was just hurting my heart that this was the last thing of Carrie Fisher's. And I didn't understand watching it why it took so long to be released. I know the director like came forward and made some comments about, you know, how it was delayed because of COVID and delayed because of like the CGI special effects that they had to do. And I mean, filming wrapped in 2016. COVID didn't happen until 2020. So you're telling me it took 4 years for you to go through post-production and do CGI, and then COVID hit and you couldn't release it because of COVID, and then you waited an additional 3 years to bring out this film? Like, it almost sort of seems to me more plausible. And again, this is just my assumption. I wasn't there, so I have no idea what caused the delay, but it seems more plausible to me that they finished doing all of the post-production, saw the film, and went, we should not put this out. And then because maybe of money or whatever the fact that they were hoping that they could get from digital streaming it, they released it anyway. But this is not something like, if I had seen this movie, for instance, if they had decided to put this out in theaters, which they did not do to my knowledge, I would have been pissed. Like, I would have been really mad that I had spent the $15 or whatever to watch this. It kind of just sort of hurts me. Again, like I said, that this is Carrie Fisher's last film and that this is kind of like her final farewell. Like it wasn't bad enough that Disney sort of trashed Princess Leia's character and ruined that for so many people, that then Wonderwell had to like drive another nail in that, like make it that much worse. This is one of those movies that I'm like, ooh, I really wish that I had not watched that, because I think I would rather have not seen Carrie Fisher in this movie, if I am completely honest. I would not recommend watching it unless you really just have, 2 hours to kill and you are a glutton for punishment. Like, it's really, it's gonna be one of those struggle bus movies that you're gonna want that time back when you're done watching it. And I can see maybe people who super love Carrie Fisher are the diehard fans who don't really care if the movie is good or not. They just want to see her on screen. Then yeah, this is probably going to be okay. But like, it's not something that I would like purchase. It's not something I would want to have in my Carrie Fisher collection, for instance. It's something that by tomorrow, hopefully will have been scrubbed from my brain when I sleep and forget all about it. Like, it's so terrible. And I adore Carrie Fisher. I wish that her last film or the last project that she had signed on for had been something really great that everyone could sort of watch and be like, yeah, that's a good send off. Like, that's a positive way to let her go. I think that would have been great, but unfortunately, Wonderwell was not that film. So those are my thoughts about Wonderwell. I would love to know what you guys thought if you watched this one. Subscribe if you want to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.